So we were talking about someone who's engaged eating truma. If she's engaged to a kohen, can he give her truma to eat? Because after a certain time, he has an obligation to maintain. And in fact, the Mishnah said that if 12 months had elapsed from the time when he announced he was going to marry her, so this is not the time of betrothal. This is the time when, in the words of the Mishnah, from the time the husband claimed, so he'd betroth her at a certain point, and then he'd roll up and say, okay, now I'm going to marry you. And at that point, he's got 12 months. And if he doesn't marry her after those 12 months, she can eat truma if he's a kohen. So the Mishnah then asks, so we're in the 5th chapter in the 3rd Mishnah, what if this is not a question of a betrothal, but a yibum? So the husband here, he's the brother-in-law, so he's her brother-in-law. He's the brother of her deceased husband who died childless. So we're shifting from engagement to yibum. And the Mishnah continues, Hayabam eino machil bitruma. And the yabam doesn't, the yabam doesn't feed in truma. Asat shisha chodeshim lifnei habal veshisha chodeshim lifnei hayabam afilu kulam lifnei habal aser yom echad lifnei hayabam eino machil bitruma. So we seem to be, the Yavam doesn't feed in truma. If she spent 6 months waiting for her husband and 6 months waiting for the Yavam. So the Mishnah seems to be talking about a situation where the husband says, oh yeah, I'm gonna marry you now. So she's betrothed. But before she can get married to this Kohen, her husband or her husband-to-be dies. Now, her brother-in-law is, of course, a Kohen as well, right? Because they're brothers, so there must be both Kohanim. So the situation the Mishnah seems to describe is where she spent 6 months waiting for her husband to marry her, and now she spends another month, 6 months, waiting for the Yavam to marry her. So in the normal course of events, if she'd waited 12 months for her husband, she could start eating truma at that point. But the Mishnah seems to forbid it. Asot shisha chodeshim lifnei habal, waiting for 6 months before her husband, veshisha chodeshim lifnei yavam, and then another 6 months waiting for the yavam. Afilu kulam lifnei habal, even if she had all 12 months waiting for the husband, chaser yom echad, so she had 11 months and 29 days waiting for the husband. Lifnei hayabam, eino ma'achil bitruma. He doesn't feed in truma. So the yavam doesn't seem to be able to feed in truma until she's actually waiting for a full 12 months for the yavam. And then the Mishnah continues, a really interesting comment on halachic process in the Mishnah. Zo Mishnah Rishonah. This is the first opinion of the Mishnah. But it got overturned. Beidin shel acharehem amru eina isha ochelet bitruma ad shetikanes lachupa. This was the first opinion in the Mishnah, but the court that followed afterwards, Beidin shel acharehem, the following Bet Din ruled, eina isha ochelet bitruma ad shetikanes lachupa. A woman can't eat truma until she's actually entered the chuppah. And there seems to be some kind of anxiety as to what would happen to this truma. So maybe, for example, she'd feed it to her family or to other members of her household. She's in this situation where she's betrothed. She's still living in her father's house. So she's living with people who are not kohanim and who can't eat truma. And yet, because of her marriage status, she's about to be able to eat truma. So we give a truma we're anxious that she's going to carry it to her father's house. She's going to eat it there. Maybe it gets mixed up with other food in her father's house. She's not yet fully married to the point that she's living in her husband's house. So this truma is sort of, let's say, crossing permeable boundaries. And so the Mishnah is ruling this, or the if you like, the court, the rule after the Mishnah is ruling, look, she's actually not going to eat truma at all until she's properly married. That's in terms of upkeep. And then the Mishnah then flexes and goes off into a discussion as to the ownership that a man has after the marriage. In other words, after she goes into the chuppah, she can now eat the truma perfectly well. She's part of the husband's household, so she can eat his truma. But does he have property rights over something that she produces? And the general assumption of the Mishnah is that the husband has property rights over what his wife owns. So the Mishnah is going to ask, well, okay, if he has property rights over what she owns, can he, for example, dispose of it? Can he dedicate it to the temple? Some man consecrates his wife's the creation of his wife's hands. He dedicates to the temple. So he says, okay, something that my wife sews or spins or cooks, I'm going to dedicate that to the temple. And the Mishnah begins by saying, Harezor sa ochelet. She continues to work and eat. Vehamotar. Vehamotar Rabbi Meir Omer Hekdesh. So, in other words, he thinks he can dedicate his wife's, the output of her hands to the temple, but actually what she needs to eat, she can eat, because what's the best way to put this? The quid pro quo, the other side of the fact that the husband has ownership rights over his wife's creativity, is that he has an obligation to maintain her, to feed her. So kind of it's a dual obligation. So the Mishnah is saying, okay, fine. Maybe what is surplus to what she needs to eat could be dedicated to the temple, according to Rabbi Meir at any rate. But the basic quantity of what she produces, well, if she doesn't have enough to eat, it certainly can't be dedicated to the temple. So we are seeing this Mishnah looks like it's all about the husband's property rights, but actually we're touching on the wife's rights as well. Now, Rabbi Meir is going to say the surplus is consecrated. Rabbi Yochanan Hasandlar, Rabbi Yochanan the sandal maker, says it's chulin. It's actually not consecrated. And Rabbi Yochanan the sandlar, Rabbi Yochanan the sandal maker, seems to be saying, look, the husband can consecrate something which exists. He can't make a commitment to consecrating something which doesn't exist. It's something which will only come into existence in the future. So Rabbi Yochanan the Sandlar is actually going to disagree with Rabbi Meir and say, look, he can consecrate what he likes to the temple, but actually what she needs to eat, she keeps, and anything that is left over is actually not consecrated at all. It's just ordinary food.